Namaste, Jai Bharat. Now the elections are over. New government is formed. What is your opinion? Was the election in favor of NDA or not? At once, a common reaction may be or shall be that this time NDA received a serious setback. But I will say this election win is the greatest win. I'll tell you why. I would say this is the greatest winning that NDA had in the past 10 years. That's for past 10 years. I have reasons to say that this is real election winning. Let's see why. The initial first time of Narendra Bhai Modi ji, BJP had majority by themselves. Second time, same thing. But third time, they would need support of some other parties. So apparently, prima facie, one may tend to think, naturally, one may tend to think that they have lost support of the people. But that really is not the case. Because lot of planning, programming and unimaginable amount of dollars, millions of dollars were spent towards keeping NDA and Modi ji out of power. And other parties, the oppositions, they were instruments in the hands of such organizations and agencies who were at play to keep NDA out of power, especially the Prime Minister out of power. Because the Prime Minister is not an easy target for them. You just can't manipulate him. You can't make him flexible to swing according to your plans and ways. They know it's impossible, so they don't try it. They don't try it and they cannot try it. I have a small personal experience similar, because when I was holding an office of a director somewhere, in my tenure, not a single recommendation came to me. Not a single recommendations for anything came to me. Because in all likelihood, people must have known that there is no point in talking to that person. He talks nicely, he tries to accommodate, but then out of the you can't talk to him. And my being a very small person in a small place, doing smaller things, just can't compare myself with him. And nobody will have the courage to go to him to ask a wrong thing. So they don't want him there, simple as that. And somebody called us, George Soros. You please search the net. These days, the net is full of videos and news about this person, George Soros, supposed to be the 30th richest man in the entire world. This is what somewhere I happen to see. He would spend money, unimaginable amount of money, to make his relative, someone in the opposition leader whom you all know, someone in the opposition, supposed to be very important, is his distant relative, something like a great grandson. But that really may be not the reason to make his great grandson the Prime Minister of Bharat. That is a whimsical, very fanciful thought, but that may be really not the case. Though this also must have worked behind. This also must have worked behind. Now there are agencies, there are nations who wanted to have their ways with Bharat, and they've seen last 10 years it doesn't work. You see, we have strong nations in the world, and they had been strong in the past also. For quite some time at least, or they must have been strong. Now the strong nations may have their own ways of doing things. Fine. And people are used to it. But when a nation which is not so strong in the past is becoming strong, everybody will be opposing that. Everyone will work against another nation becoming strong, because they don't want another strong nation. They don't want another strong nation, because many of the strong nations they will dictate and impose themselves on the other people who are not so strong or rather weak. So they don't want another big brother in the game. That's a simple logic. More than this, there are hard logics also. You see, the corporate interest. See, if Bharat is a nation with all kinds of infrastructure and facilities and capabilities hidden with such potential, people know it. Now, if this nation becomes strong, you look at the case of what happened during the COVID pandemic invasion planned by Chinese, as people say. Suppose Bharat did not make her own COVID vaccine, then we will have to buy it from someone who makes it somewhere. That becomes business. They would sell their vaccine at their cost. We will be compelled to buy it. But Bharat had made 2 vaccines, so they could not get Bharat as a market. How much more they would have earned if we did not make the vaccine? Just think. If it was not this regime, I'm sure we would not have made a COVID vaccine at that time. Even if our scientists are always capable, only thing, the nation must facilitate our genius scientists or people to do work. Suppose if it was not NDA, if it was not Narendra Bhai Modi ji, then when someone tries to plan or make, it will be jeopardized. It will be somehow there will be hindrances, there will be stoppages, some files will not move, this thing, that thing. Ultimately, it will not happen. You see, there was a time when I was in the Indian Air Force, this Hindustan Fighter 24 was flying. HF-24 was a good fighter aircraft. We made it long back. Then what happened to the Hindustan Fighter series program? Who destroyed the vision? We used to have squadrons of Hindustan Fighter 24, and that used to be a good aircraft. No, we can't compare it with the MiGs of that time. We can't. But that was a good fighter. The point is, we have made our own fighter aircraft in those days, and now, after all these years, is what we have made our own fighter jets. After all these years, why this gap? This gap is not an innocent gap. This gap is very deliberately created by people with their own interests. Do you think our people are unable to create inventions? No. They are not permitted. Now somehow, in a very polished manner, this doesn't work. It suddenly becomes missing. The programs gets delayed, and ultimately it will not take off. It will not take place. Similarly, there are many corporate interests, naturally with their own interests. They would want to enhance their own future programs, increase themselves, establish themselves more and more and more. And Bharat, if we do it in our own way, this is a problem to them, hindrance to them. They have to work more. If we do our part correctly, we make our own things. We don't depend on others. When we don't depend on them, they get heart attacks. They want us to depend on them and say we are your friend, listening, brothers, whatever. But we are autonomous. When we are self-sufficient, they can't have a say to us. We will do things in our way, in our style, in our manner, at our will. This they can't afford. So, All this happens because of the strong government. All these is happening because of the particular political setup which is supported by the ideology of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Nobody will say explicitly that Sangha is functioning through me, but Sangha is functioning. That is what the dynamics of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. They have parivars everywhere, and there are such dedicated people. When they say Rashtraya Swaha Idam Namama, it's not simple expression. Rashtraya Swaha Idam Namama is not a simple expression. People live that, and I can really vouch for this. These people do live that. There are people amazing. Several times I was shocked to see the extent of selflessness in the Karyakartas and Swayamsevaks. They don't want anything for themselves. Of course, it is nothing new to ancient Bharatiya knowledge tradition, because our creators of many texts, they seldom even mentioned their own names. Who wrote what? Many times they were teamwork. So that selflessness is built in us. We are also guided and led by the Upanishadic Tattva principle of Tektena Bhunjita. When Pujaniya Guruji told us Rashtraya Swaha Idam Namama, he is rooted on the Tektena Bhunjita principle from the Upanishads. When such people are at the helm, when such people are at the helm of things, and when such people are functioning, they work and don't speak. They work. Idam na mama is a great principle. So with such nation, many people will have heartburns, and they can't have their own way, and then it's natural for them to do all kinds of things to try and get India out of power. So I just mentioned one name of George Soros, but many such things. There were NGOs funded, and who do you think how the citizen Amendment Act agitation took place, and who funded them? And what is the farmer agitation in the Punjab-Haryana border? Punjab and Haryana comes to Delhi border, Haryana-Delhi border. Who funds them? If you have seen the videos, who spends on them? People, the agitators have a luxurious life. Who spends on them? And who gives funds to even a newsreader who makes a news against the government of the Bharat or persons involved? And why some people are explicitly and desperately speaking against the nation? वो कहता ना हिंदी में, पैसा फेंक तमाशा देख, पर पैसा फेंकने से हर कोई कार्टून नहीं बनते. They throw money and get work done by people who are buyable, but not all people can be purchased. There are lots of people who stand by principles. You just can't dream of buying them, and that stream is what they have to fight with. So if you search the social media, and if you do a small homework of couple of hours, you can yourself come to know the extent of programming and policies and all kinds of things they have done to get NDA out of power. All those things, and they have divided. One most interesting thing, one most important aspect for them was to divide the Hindu society into castes. They think it is easy to divide. To some extent they succeed. But I will just like to tell you, to mark you, that you can't easily divide Hindu society on the name of caste, because we have one place of worship in spite of the apparent caste division, and right from the time of Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati, we ourselves had been fighting against castes. Some time back I spoke about the same thing. In a temple there is no caste. And in our personal lives during the childhood we never bother of caste or religion of others. We never bother of religion and caste. It's only when the learned people have told us that you have this caste or that caste, you are a Brahmin or not Brahmin, this kind of things. So that they try to divide the Hindu society into castes, and that succeeded in Uttar Pradesh to a great extent, where we lost so many seats. They were successful there. So, this election, the NDA had to face heavy odds, fight heavy odds, and we don't know who our enemies are. They are not right in front of you. They work from behind the curtains. You don't know whose hands are coming from where to do what. But in spite of all these things, today NDA is in rule. We have the same Prime Minister whom all of us most dearly wanted. We have the same Prime Minister. So, don't you think this election victory is really great? This is real great victory. It was not so great in the past, but this time we really had to fight and to come to power. We had to fight the people, those who are involved in shadow war. We had to fight the people who are hiding behind we don't know where. We had to fight against lies and deceits and propaganda, well organized, hitting propaganda, which would change people's mind. We had to fight against all those things. We fought and we won. So I will tell, this victory is the greatest of victory of all time in the history of Bharat. Let's really do celebrate this victory as a real victory. And for the future to come, I don't think we'll have to struggle more than what you are struggling now. So till we meet next time, Namaste, Jai Bharat and Jai Shri Ram.